a pretty good idea of the kind of magic and the kind of world you want to get across in your book. What do you want it to feel like? What do you want it to symbolize? And how far out there do you want to go? Like, do you want to do a full, time machine thing? Or do you want to do witches with cauldrons? Or do you want to do that more subtle magic? Have an idea of the kind of story you want to write. And this can change and morph, as clearly we all do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is read great books by great authors who write those kinds of stories.
Mm-hmm.
I took a couple of writing classes in college, but I do not have a degree in writing. I do not have a degree, period. I self-taught myself by going out and finding great writers and reading and studying with a notebook and a highlighter and making notes on how they pulled things off, how they, not to copy, but to kind of like go backstage and see how the wheels turned, and how the mechanism of their storytelling and how they made it real. Because for me, that's a big part of writing magical realism, is it does have to seem real for me.
Right.
If you're writing science fiction, it can be whatever you want. But if you're writing that kind of everyday magic and it's just a kind of a weave or a drop in, it needs to be a little subtle. And the great writers do it great. And just read everything you can find and learn from great writers.
I am Melissa Bourbon, and this is Bourbon and Books. Thanks for hanging out with us. Today I'm talking with Barbara Davis, and we are talking about magic in fiction. Barbara Davis, welcome to the Writer's Spark podcast. I'm really so thrilled that you are here. I just finished reading The Echo of Old Books. I read The Last of the Moon Girls. Love your work, so really excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So I'd like to start with an author's origin story. So let's just jump in there, and you can tell us about how you came from the corporate world into the writing world.
Okay, I was in the jewelry business, and I had worked my way up the corporate ladder. I was a vice president of operations for a national jewelry chain, and I'd been doing that for about 15 years, and I was rapidly burning out. Told my husband I didn't think I had more than another year, and then I'd have to find something else to do. He urged me right then, quit right now. If this is killing you, quit right now. And I was too much of a chicken to do that. So the universe, in its infinite wisdom, had other plans. About 6 weeks later, I got laid off. The company that I was working for consolidated a bunch of stores and positions, and I got laid off. So my first instinct was to run out and find a job just like the one I had, at upper corporate level. And my husband said, "Do not do it. You were ready to get out. You've wanted to write a book for 4 years. You've been sitting on it. Go write the book, chase your dream. I'll carry the ball." And I mean, it just worked out wonderfully. About 6 months into the book, I decided I needed to get some feedback as to whether or not this was a viable dream or not. So I joined a writer's club. My second night, the first night we critiqued my work, there was a woman sitting across from me who was just there to observe, which we all thought was kind of odd, but writers can be an odd bunch, so who judges? At the end of the group, the critique went very well, and at the end of the group, as we were breaking up, she followed me out, handed me her business card, and said, "I'm Nalini Okolakar with Spencer Hill Associates, and I'm wondering if you would consider sitting down and talking to me about representation." So needless to say, I thought maybe my husband was punking me or something, because I almost did not go to this meeting. I almost chickened out because I was afraid of the negative feedback and of having my little soul and my little dream crushed. So I almost chickened out, and he said, "No, you're going." And because I went and did the scary thing, this was laid in front of me. So that's why I'm kind of sheepish about how I sold the first book, 2-book deal with Penguin, like 6 months later. So I never had to write a single query letter. So it felt so easy and so unfair the way I got my foot in the door, that anytime I can help another writer who is struggling or maybe thinking of throwing in the towel, I love to do that because I feel like, giving back is, I didn't pay my dues the way most people do. So I'd like to pay my dues on the back end.
That's great. I love to hear that. My story is incredibly different than that. I sent out query letter after query letter, dozens and dozens, and this was snail mail time also, and so many rejections, and so many times I wanted to throw in the towel. My husband also was the person that said, no,
Yay for
no, no, just
husbands.
keep going, keep going. Yay for husbands. And exactly. And, eventually I did get the agent and I did get the book deal, but it was a long time coming and it was definitely tough. But the paying it forward kind of comes from, I was a teacher by trade and public school, and teaching is in my blood. I started a writing academy a couple of years ago because I couldn't quite give up teaching, but I didn't want to go back to the classroom, and I was able to write full time, which was wonderful. But I feel like I've learned so much over the last 15, 18 years that how can I sit on that? I want to give it back. I want to help people sort of skip the line or, learn some of the things that I learned, but a lot more quickly than I
Yeah.
had to do it. So we all have our different paths. It's so fun and interesting to hear a story like yours where you just kind of,
Yeah. It
catapulted.
was, it was, you, because you took the traditional path, you had a lot of time to learn the ins and outs, where I just kind of got thrown into the deep end of the pool. And all of a sudden, my agent is throwing acronyms at me, and other writers are saying, oh, when you get your arcs and all of these. And I'm like, it was like another language. So my learning
Mhm.
curve had to be very steep. And I thought, I'm never going to be comfortable. I felt like kind of like a fraud because I jumped in, like I stole home, like from, I just, boom,
Yeah.
I was there. And then I realized, there's a lot. It's a big education.
Yeah. You had that imposter syndrome thing going on, I bet.
Oh, still do.
No, I think we all do. I think that's just
Yeah.
part of our psyche.
Every book is like, this is the book. This is the book that's going to do it. This is the book that's going to expose me.
Oh, no, no. Well, that being said, I think you're an incredibly gifted writer. So, I mean,
Oh,
I was an English major. I taught English, all of these things. I think I'm a good writer. But, I read The Echo of Old Books, and you have these dual storylines going on with Belle and Hemi and then Ashlyn, and the way that you weave it together, and you've got these two complete stories. I mean, it's hard enough to tell one story. Telling
yeah.
two is really like a lot. And then to weave them together as seamlessly as you did, I mean, I think you're really gifted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was clearly insane when I came up with that idea.
Yeah, I
My
was
husband,
very ambitious.
my husband said, "You're going to do what now?" I'm like, "No, I can do it. I can do it." And I started the book, and I'm like, "I can't do it."
How long did it take you to write that book?
Probably about 14 months.
Okay.
Usually a year, but every book seems to get a little more complicated than the last one. Like I reach a little higher, so it takes a little longer.
Mhm.
So, um,
That's the way it goes, isn't it? You push yourself.
you don't want to get stale, and you
Mhm.
want to treat your readers to something a little fresh. And so you get ambitious, and then you commit to it, and you're like, "Oh boy,
Yeah,
maybe
with
I
the
didn't
heavy
think
one.
this through."
I had that very experience. I have a series called The Book Magic. I'm going to talk about magic here in a minute, but it's the Book Magic series. And, throughout that first book, I thought, I'm never going to be able to pull this all together. It's just not going to happen. And then I would do some research and I would have this aha moment that was brilliant, in my opinion. And I never could have plotted in a million years. And there it was, the universe giving me the answer to the problem that I was having. And it came together wonderfully. And the whole series, kind of progressed in that same fashion. So I think we get lost in our heads and think we can't do it,
Yeah,
but we always pull it off.
we do. There's something, when those. most of my book ideas kind of land on me fully formed, like they're not there and then whoosh, they are. I don't sit down and
Wow.
say, okay, so I'm going to have a character here and a character here, and this person's going to do that, and this person's going to have this job, and this is how they're going to get together. The whole thing sort of lands on me like bird droppings, just,
Wow.
and then I quick capture it. But then you have to sit down and with the nuts and bolts of it and make it work. And
Mhm.
that's where you start questioning yourself. And for me, what I have to do is remind myself I was gifted with this book idea
Mhm.
for a reason. If it was given to me, it can be done. It can be written. So then I have to like breathe into that and then like relax back into waiting for, like you said, those aha moments.
Now, are you a plotter, a pantser, hybrid?
Oh, I'm a plotter. I am a oh, my outline when I start a book, I do a whole binder, and the whole thing from start to finish. The out first draft slash outline is usually around 175 pages. It's
Oh my
scene by scene by scene by scene.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's how I stay sane.
Yeah.
That's how I know every day when I sit down, okay, I only have to do this step. If I can do this step, I'm on pace. So it's for me that's assurance. And I have other friends that love that process and they say I'm going to try that and they try that and it just doesn't work for them. It boxes them in. So we're all different. Everybody works their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a big theme throughout this entire podcast is that there is not one way to do things, that we all have to find our own way. And we can try different things and that can help us find our own path. But just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for us and vice versa. So, how long does that plotting, that initial creation of the binder outline part take? Because I always feel like, and this is absolutely the wrong way to think about it, but I often think that if I'm not actually writing the story, I'm not writing, I'm wasting time, which is so wrong, you know? So that's part of my hang up. And also my brain just doesn't work in that organized
Right.
fashion. So I'm curious, how long does that process take you before you actually even start writing?
Well, it's hard to say because I'm usually starting that while I'm doing developmental edits for the last book. You know how that goes. You're always working on 3 books.
Yep.
The one you're promoting, the one you just finished, and the one you're just starting. They're all 3 of those are in your life and in your head at the same time. So it's a kind of a stop and start. Like right now, I'm working on character sketches, and tomorrow my developmental edits will land. So I'll put that will have to go in the back burner while I work on the developmental edits. I would say if I went straight through maybe 6 to 8 weeks if I just worked on that and nothing else. But the thing is, when I say I go scene by scene, it's not okay. In this scene, she discovers the suitcase full of old letters.
Mhm.
In this scene, I mean, it's written, it's mapped out, it's choreographed out. There's bits of dialogue in it, so it's not like I'm not writing because a big portion of what's in those scene by scene capsules will actually end up just kind of fleshed out a little bit, but actually in the book. So it's the first really ugly, sloppy writing that you wouldn't want anybody to see.
Mhm.
But it for me, it keeps me flowing, and it also keeps me like when I'm doing that, I realize, oh, here's an issue. Here's a problem that I'm going to have to go and backfill this information, or the reader's not going to get it, or this won't work because the timeline's off. So as I'm working through those, I catch a lot of stuff that when I tried not to outline and just pants it, I wind up with all of these messes at the back end or at the front end that I didn't catch. I tried one book, which was the book I just finished.
Mm.
I tried to do it a little differently. I used note cards and post-it notes, and I'm like, I don't need that outline thing anymore. Oh, I so needed it.
Yeah.
We live and we learn.
Yeah. So by that process, though, you probably get to know your characters so much better right out of the gate. So by the
Yes.
time you're writing the full book, even if you have these snippets and pieces that are going to end up, you're not going through the character development and discovering who these people are and how they're going to react to things because you've already gone through that process.
Yes, that's the first thing I do is full character sketches that are usually 5 or 6 pages long for the main character, their whole story, their backstory, stuff that won't necessarily make it into the book, but that inform who they are and the choices that they would make.
Mhm.
Um, I never plot all the way to the end. Usually, like the last 3 chapters, those scenes are not touched, mostly because I need to get through the whole process of telling their story before I know what kind of ending they need and what the book needs. By the time I finally write that ending, I've been through like 3 drafts and I really know them.
Hmm.
So yeah, doing that really does help me, because when I don't do that, which is what happened on the last
Yeah.
book, I don't know the characters as well, and they do stupid stuff that I have to then go back and undo because it doesn't make any sense. It's not true to who they turned out to be. So
Hmm.
for me, knowing who they're going to turn out to be is critical before I really start getting down in the weeds with the drafts.
Do you end up ever changing any of your key plot points? The book that I just wrote and turned into my agent, which is called The Sky Girls, which I think is actually kind of similar. I mean, the same vein as your books, which obviously is what I love. But I had it all plotted about 20 pages, not 100 and something pages, but 20 pages. And some of the key plot points changed through my writing process, which always happens for me because, as I said, I have these aha moments. So I might have it, you know, generally plotted, and I know that this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and it ends up changing, and significantly. You mean it changed quite a lot of the book as a result? Does that happen to
Yes,
you?
I go through the same thing. Um, a lot of times I'll be, which always surprises me because I really dig into these my characters before I start, but I'll get about halfway through and all of a sudden a character will reveal something to me that I didn't know. Like something will just come out of their mouths and I'm like, "Do what now? You were married? You have an ex-wife who was a drug addict? Wait,
Yeah.
new information." So then like you have to go back, put that in, but when you stay open to changing, and I think that's where a lot of people get worried about being a plotter, is that it's written in stone. It's not. There's a delete key. You can go back and take anything out you want. You can black it out and leave it there, or you can cut it and put it on a scrap page. I love the scrap page. It's never lost, but you're able to play, and so many times when you let yourself let go of how you thought it was going to work out, it works out so much better because you have pieces that you didn't have when you started it. So I love when that happens, and a lot of times you'll realize I'm notoriously, I run long on all my books, so I have to go back always and cut out 100,000 words every book I ever write.
Cut out
Which is
100,000 words?
Yeah, my books always end up around close to like 550,000. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
500 it's 550 pages. So yes, I'm going back and hacking and slashing. And so I'm always looking for places where I can, scrunch, and all of a sudden you'll realize, what? Why did I think I needed that? I don't need this thread. And you pull that thread out, you go back and pull all of those pieces out throughout the book. The whole book gets lighter. It just lifts up and now it's like breathing.
Mhm.
So yes, a lot of times the changes that I find are things I thought were important in the beginning that fit in this story or fit with this character that just don't. And it took me a long time to learn to let go of those. They're such great ideas. Okay, put
Yes.
them on a scrap page, use them in something else,
Right.
but not here. She doesn't need this piece. She doesn't need that
Right.
scar. Give that scar to someone else.
That's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, I've gone through that too. I think probably everybody does because it's your blood, sweat, and tears, and it's all of this time, and it's this creative brilliance that you've gotten down on the page. And how can I delete it? How can I get rid of it? How can that not be part of this brilliant book
Right.
I'm writing?
Well, one of the things that I've finally learned, it took me about 4 books in to realize, if I am really struggling to get a passage right or a scene right or even a whole chapter right, and I'm really struggling, it's just not flowing and I can't like back away from it and say, okay, that's good enough for now.
Mhm.
It's because it doesn't belong there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to fit a square peg in a round hole and I keep bashing away at it. And finally, I'm thinking, what if I took this out? What if I just took it out? So I take it out, put it on the scrap page. And like I said, the whole thing lifts. And it's like, oh, that was the whole problem. I wasted 4 days writing that stupid scene, but the book's better now without it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just is.
And that's
Sometimes that belongs in another book.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson, but I mean, I go through the same thing. Whenever I'm stuck, I know it's because there's a problem of some
Yeah,
sort, whether it's a problem with the plot, whether something doesn't belong, whether it's the characters behaving in a way that they shouldn't behave. Something is wrong, and I have to step away, move on to some other part before I can figure out
yeah.
what is wrong, with
Get a
that.
little distance and a little objectivity.
Yeah, exactly. Your earlier books did not incorporate magic in the way that your latter books do. So I'd like to talk about that. I love threads of magic. Most of my books, most of my series have some thread of magic in them. To me, it's not heavy-handed. It's not, they're witches and, casting spells and things like that. It's more like what I would like the world to be like, this sort
Yeah.
of um enchantment level, that
Mhm.
takes us a little above.
Connection. Mhm.
Yeah, a little above the reality of what we live, that's why I put the magic in. So I'd love to hear about that transition from your earlier books, which were women's fiction, but without that thread, to your latter books, which now all have that thread, right?
Right. Well, I'm a magic kind of girl. I believe in everyday magic. I believe that we're far more magical than we think we are. And I always start when people ask me about magic in when I'm at a live event. The first thing I do is ask them, raise your hand if you ever had a grandmother or your mom or an auntie who knew things, who knew things they shouldn't know, who could tell when it was going to rain, who knew when someone needed a call. And almost everybody raises their hand because there's that everyday magic that is woven through life. And a lot of times we don't see it or we don't call it that. So I've always believed in that. When I was with my first four books, I was with Penguin Random House. And they pretty much told me what they wanted me to write. I
Mhm.
sort of had a niche that I needed to stay in, a
Mhm.
lane. And then when I switched to Lake Union, who are wonderful, by the way, um, they're like, whatever you want to write. We love your writing, whatever you want to write. So it really let me expand. My first book with them did not have um, real magic in it, which was When Never Comes. But then when Last of the Moon Girls idea landed on me, was the time when there was a lot of question about women and women's place in society, and women were standing up and we were marching, and it just felt like a time that of solidarity for women. So I wanted to write a book about a group of women, about a family of women, and do it to honor
Mhm.
um, the way the women in the world are the carriers of the family traditions, whether they're magical, whether they're everyday. They're the ones that know all where all the pictures are. They know all the stories. They pass down all the family lore. So I wanted to write a book that had that feeling, and I thought, what better way to do it than about a group of gifted herbal healers
Mhm.
and weave in a little, just a touch of that magic. And it was, and I thought, they're either going to, people, my readers are going to love this or I'm done. And they loved it. So I've just continued on with it. And I love to find ways to weave it into just an everyday story of women going through stuff. And then this element comes in, and it's not like, the element is what saves them, but the element is the magical element is part of the discovery process, that they're stronger than they thought they were, that they can endure more, that they're more gifted or whatever. It's a revelation for them. It's part of their personal journey. So I love that. And I can't imagine now ever writing a book that didn't have that in it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I can't imagine writing a book without some sort of magical thread because it's so significant and feels personally meaningful to me, and that's what I want to put out into the world too. So I'm with you on that. Do you start with the character or the magical ability? So we have the last of the Moon Girls as healers, but then in the echo of old books, we have Ashlyn who has this connection to books that conveys the emotions of people who have had those books in the past. So did you start with that? Let's go to the echo of old books. Did you start with that concept of magic, or the plot
Um,
or the dual plot? Like, how did that? I know you said they come to you kind of fully formed, but
they do. It's really weird. It's like it just lands in a basket, and there are all the pieces. Like the Hemi and Bell piece was there, and I knew it was going to be two books that talk to one another.
Mhm.
And then I knew I wanted to have the bookstore owner. I wanted her to be able to sense this is not a joke. This is not a gimmick. These are real people because I can feel it.
Mhm.
So it sort of lands, like I said, like a basket. The pieces are all there. When I get the story, whatever the magical element is usually there as well. It's woven, it's like it's part of who the character is right out of the gate for me. In The Keeper of Happy Endings, the bridal dress designer that 9 generations of women who sew good luck charms into wedding dresses to ensure a happy marriage. All of that landed on me all at one time. I knew I wanted it to be about wedding dresses set in war, but I knew I wanted these bridal dresses to be charmed, and that was the gift that these Roselle women had. So it comes as like, oh, well, I know she has blonde hair. Well, I also know she can make these wedding dresses with magic.
That it's so funny that we have so many parallels because one of my series is magical dressmaking mystery series. I have cozy mysteries,
Yes.
and then I've transitioned into more more fiction with some mystery and magical elements, and now more into women's fiction. But that series kind of happened in a similar way. I started with this character, but I knew she was going to be charmed, and I call it charmed rather than magical. And she sews the wishes and dreams into the clothing that she makes. It's like a Project Runway meets small town Texas meets, yeah, charmed clothing. So similar, and I love that. It just gives me the writer, I think, so much freedom to tap into connections between people, and especially the sisterhood, whether it's friendships or mother daughter
Yes.
or cousins or aunts, and all of that, but through this sort of enchanted layer that just
Mhm.
just gives
Yes.
warm feelings.
I and you I feel like when you put that into the world, you're sprinkling your own magic out there in a way. When someone closes my book, I want them to sigh and think, oh, what a wonderful world that is.
Yeah.
And I want them to feel that warm and fuzzy, and then kind of like the if only, but it's a hopeful kind of
Yes.
wistfulness.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. All right, so another thing I've noticed in the books of yours that I've read is that your characters, although they have these charms or these magical gifts of whatever they might be, they're not just sort of out there. They're either denied or not recognized, or they kind of keep them to themselves. And I wanted to explore that a little bit because, that's something that I run into is, well, how do the normal people feel about this magic when they discover it, or if it's shared with them, is it just accepted as part of this world that you create, or is it this really private, insular um, part of the magical family? Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it does. I think from with my characters, I sort of tap into the reality of in the world that if you're different, you're wrong. And if you're different, you maybe shouldn't brag about that. You should kind of try to fit in. You should try to, suppress that gift, suppress that whatever it is. You're too loud, you're too funny, you're too out there, you're too much. You're just too much. Women are sort of that's kind of woven into the fabric of being a proper lady is to kind of keep it low, don't put yourself out there. And for me, that's the magic is part of that, is them not feeling comfortable or able or free to express all of who they are. Is sort of symbolic for me, with how the world treats a lot of women, not just women, men too, but a lot of women, there are ideas about how you should be in the world and what people will accept. And the minute you surprise them with something, you lose some of them, or you put yourself in a box that wigs people out a little bit. So I kind of want them to wrestle with that as part of their journey, and also make it a symbolic thing. A lot of my books have themes like, write your own story. You can change your ending at every time, at any point. You can rewrite your story. Own your story. And for me, the magic is symbolic of all of the inner woman, whatever that kind of magic is, and her reluctance to embrace it is, fear of being judged, fear of being excluded, which as women in society, we really know about, and really just generally in society for men as well. It's, if you color outside the lines, people are going to point, and nobody likes to be pointed at.
Right. Well, that's very true. So you focus on magic with the women. Will you ever have any magical thread with a male character?
I haven't so far, but now that's going to fester.
I haven't so far
um,
either, and it's always the women in the family line that carry the magic,
yes,
and that just
yeah,
seems
the next book,
organic and natural to me for my stories.
yeah, yes. I'll have to think about that. The next book is plotted out, and again, it's a family of women, the Thorn women, and it's a long line of women that it's a hereditary. Um, so I've not done a male. I can't imagine right now doing that, but never say never. I'm, like I said, I'm always looking to top the last thing.
Yeah,
So
the book that I just finished, it's all female in the magic and the sort of magical gifts that they have, but there is this sort of dark side of the family that it's all about this Irish history and stuff, and the person that's trying to thwart them or trying to kind of get their magic is the man. So, you know,
oh.
yeah, there's
But he's
that
not
little
magic.
tension going on.
He wants to steal the magic.
Yes,
He's not himself.
yes,
Hmm.
and he's part
You
of the
see,
same family though, but distantly.
oh.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't played with that, but now I'm gonna think about it. Lord knows what will land on me in the next week or so.
So, what is the magic with the Thorn women family?
Um, the Thorn women live on an island called Sugar Island, which is sort of Cape Codish
Mhm.
area. And it goes back to the matriarch of the family. Her name was Delawyn Thorn, and she was hung as a witch
Mm.
from a tree. There's one tree at the end of this island, and that end of the island is called Bitter End because 13 women were hung as witches. Not for doing anything other than you know making other people angry, competing with the local doctor, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. So there's the 13, and the first woman was Delawyn Thorn, and her daughter goes after she's dead, and the daughter grows up, she's adopted, and then she realizes what her family heritage is, goes back, gets that piece of property
Mm.
with that hanging tree, which is like nobody goes to to Bitter End, that end of the island. She buys that piece of property, and she hangs a swing from the hanging tree where her mother was hung. And every day she swings on the thing. She builds a house, and she builds a dynasty of Thorn women that live in the house at Bitter End. And it's this there's a whole train of women who just constantly keep getting themselves into trouble.
Mhm.
And of course, there's a woman who has been estranged from the entire family, and her world blows up. She goes back to Bitter End basically to hide from the press and a crazy ex-husband, and she discovers her heritage. She discovers her magic. And there may or not, but there probably will be a little time slip
Mm.
in this book, which is not something I've ever done. So there's the new
Mhm.
thing. My husband is like, please don't do that. Please don't try to do that. He's like, I don't understand how you're going to make it work. I'm like, oh,
I don't
I'll
either, but it
figure.
will.
Yeah, so it's basically all throughout from the 1734, which was when this first Thorn woman, Delaware Thorn, was hung. These generations of women have alternately been trying to downplay the magic and the reputation, and then there's one in particular who loves to rub it in the faces of the town and freak everybody out. And she gets herself into some trouble. And so it's sort of it's a little bit of a family saga, time slip, magic realism. There's a lot going on. So
Sounds
again, hopefully pull it off.
it sounds great. I can't wait to read it. And the book that I've just finished writing, The Sky Girls, there's sort of a similar catalyst to the story, which is a woman named Biddy Early, who is the last woman tried for witchcraft in Ireland. And she's a real person. And she was not convicted, but that's kind of where my story starts, with her and the fact that she wasn't convicted, and the fact that her son, Paddy, leaves her because he doesn't like all of the attention and labels and witchcraft and all of that thrown on him. And in my story, he takes something, and that's why she wasn't convicted. So he unintentionally saves her, but
Oh.
also starts this whole ball rolling with the family and their magic.
Have
So,
you read? I just finished it. Everyone knows your mother's a witch.
no.
It's a short book, and it's sort of written as a novel, but it's based on a true story. A woman in Germany who was tried as a witch, a real story, and a very similar. She had sons who one son walked away from her, one son accused her, one son tried to save her,
Hmm.
but it's very interesting. You watch literally how the fever catches fire. People that used to love this woman are turned against her in very odd ways. So you sort of watch the whole thing progress, and then it just becomes this conflagration of lies and denouncements and stuff. It's a really interesting book. I just read it over the weekend because I thought it's got a really weird cover. So
Mhm.
I picked it up and I thought, I'm going to have to check this out. So it was sort of fascinating and I think this was in the 1600s in Germany, but the same kind of mechanism as you were talking about with the sun,
Mhm.
just like I have to step away from you. You're wrecking my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a lawyer. I'm trying to get promoted here, and you're messing with my career.
Yeah,
So
but the interesting thing is, and I don't know if you feel this way with the books that you write, but you have one character that makes a decision that sets the ball rolling, and that decision, changes everything. In my book club, we just read The Secret, let's see, The Memory Keeper's Daughter. Not magical
mhm,
at all,
yeah,
historical, but everything that happens is based on a single decision that this man makes, and you can just see all of the terrible things that are going to happen because of that decision in the moment that he makes it. And i
yeah,
i love that in the books that I write, when you have this sort of catalyst that stems from one decision, and then you get to run with that and discover and unfurl all the threads that are the result of that single decision.
yes, yeah. And there's it's almost like in the book that I'm starting now. It's sort of like a tag team. I make a terrible decision, and because I did, these things happen, and because of that, tag, you're it. And then the next daughter grows up with her own set of, and it's. I write a lot about sort of family scars.
Mhm.
That we carry our mother's scars and our we don't realize it, but we're shaped by scars of women that lived 100 years ago, because it's like tag team. We pass it on. And it's like this snowball that keeps getting bigger. And at some point, one of the women in the path hopefully can say, you know what? I don't have to do that. I can do it better. And I love that moment of choice for that one woman who says, just because the last 9 women in my family all did, were terrible at love or died broke or were alcoholics or whatever, I can do it differently. I can make a different choice, and then pivot. And then you see, hopefully, in the epilogue, that you have the tag you're it is now good things. That
Mhm.
those threads that move forward are happy things, because again, of one choice one woman made 9 generations later to end that that series of bad.
Yeah, and that wasn't exactly how the Last of the Moon Girls played out, but somewhat Lizzie Moon has that sensibility about her that she's denying what was happening in the past. She wants to do things differently. She wants to live her own life and not be burdened with this legacy,
Right.
right? And but then she comes to peace with it.
Right. She comes home, and because Althea teaches her to think about it in a different way, and
Mhm.
she comes to see all of the good that was done and how it outweighs the negative energy. And she decides she wants to change the whole feel of how the family is seen. She sort of makes
Mhm.
that her mission. And
Right.
then in the end, you see there's a new Moon Girl coming, and I have not completely ruled out a sequel to that book.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be great. Yeah, but you still do incorporate, it's been a while since I've read it, but I think you do incorporate that generational element through the book, right? That
Yeah.
that
Yep.
Lizzie discovers or finds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love those themes. See, that's why you're just one of my favorite authors, because you incorporate
It's
all
just
those things that I love so much.
it's just so much fun because for me, those are I come from a family where the men had all the power
Hmm.
and the women had all the brains. We had all the heart, all the brains. The men would never ever admit to this, but it was the women, always the women, who kept things from completely burning down,
Hmm.
that held the men up, that kept the family together, that kept the food on the table. Always the women got no credit for it. And that was part of what I wanted the Moon Girls to be, is this is what the women do. This is what women bring to the table that we don't always, get credit for. While the men are out there flexing, the women are quietly making sure no one dies, no one falls off a cliff, everyone's fed, and they're the keepers of the flame, the keepers of the stories.
Hmm.
So I just kind of wanted to write an homage to women everywhere, but especially the generations of women that are behind me and that are behind most of us, that a lot of times we don't even realize that the things that how our lives are shaped because of things that they went through that we don't know about. And then when we get older, all of a sudden we find out, oh, well, no wonder. But
Hmm.
when we're kids, we take so much for granted. And then when you're older, you start putting all those pieces together and thinking, wow, she was something else.
Hmm.
So I love being able to go back in time and give those women credit for
Hmm.
for those kind of things in my book.
I love that too. The keeper, you just said the women are the keeper of the memories and the houses and all of that sort of thing. Funnily enough, that in my Sky Girls, that is one of the big things. They are the keepers of Swallow Hall. They are the keepers of the magic, essentially, and that's what I actually call them, which is
Right.
so funny.
But it's because that's why I call it everyday magic, because it's truer than most people think it is.
Mhm, mhm.
They call it something else, but when it comes right down to it, women are pretty magical. I mean, we have pulled off some feats, and we continue to pull off some
Yes,
feats.
on a daily basis.
Very little at our disposal.
That's true.
From When Never Comes, Last of the Moon Girls, The Keeper of Happy Ending, Echoes, and then Precious and Fragile is the next one. So yeah, that's a weird book. That's about a death doula.
Oh my
So
god. I swear to God, we live parallel lives. I had a whole concept about a death doula, and my agent didn't like it because she's like, nobody's gonna like thinking about the death part of things. And so I kind of tabled it.
oh,
But I have about 50 pages of that book written.
well, if my book goes well, then you can just put it back out there and go, look,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
see, see,
there we go. That's so funny.
because it's a death doula who, over the course of her 30-year career, almost every one of her charges gives her some precious thing that
Mm.
the people that she deal with have no family. There's no one left to leave their mother's lace handkerchiefs to. So she has a house full of stuff that is her house is like a museum of dead people's things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there's like a creepy doll set, and there's preserved spiders and a pair of stuffed cats. So it's a little,
So
but
shows
those are
she's the keeper of other people's memories.
right. Yeah, of other people's precious and fragile
Right.
things.
Yeah.
And it turns out that one of the precious and fragile things is a bigger secret than anything else. It threatens to blow her whole world apart if it comes out, and it does. So,
Hmm.
um,
When does this
yeah.
book come out?
February, I think it's February 8th of 2025.
Oh, I hate having to wait
I
so
know.
long. That sounds so
I
great.
think it's hilarious that you wrote a book about a death doula too, or came up with the concept for it, because almost nobody knows what that is.
Yeah, my neighbor was a birth doula, and so yeah, when years ago we were just talking about it, and yeah, this idea just kind of bloomed. But I have a different agent now, but the one that I had before, she was like, I don't think people are going to be into this. So
Was it one, two, three book? My fourth book, Love Alice. Probably 2/3 of it takes place in a graveyard, and
yes,
my
I haven't read the book, but I read the blurb about the letters that she finds. It sounds great. Yeah.
editor was like, "Really? You were going to write a book set in a graveyard, a women's fiction book? You think people are going to read this?" And she trusted me. And when I was done, I sent it to her, and she read it in like 3 days. And she's like, "Oh my God, you did it! You pulled it off!"
Wow.
So yeah, I like graves, and I like to get a little bit of the dark stuff in there because it's real. It's
Yeah.
there is dark stuff in life.
Right. Yeah.
So
I mean,
that was the
I'm the
first
same way.
glimmer of magic, was that book, because at the end there's just a moment of sort of like a presence of the person that died, that whose letters and things that you're reading,
Uh huh.
of her sort of arranging to put these people together.
Oh.
So that was the first time I did that, because I wanted to leave the book on a really hopeful note, since so much death, and people loved it. And that's when I thought, I wonder how much more of this I could get away with,
Mm-hmm.
because that's my real jam. So
Yeah.
I love that we morphed into that, and
Yeah.
I love that I found you. You like the same stuff, and you write the same stuff. So that's awesome. I'm going to go load up all your books.
Thank you. Yeah, the thing with the echo of old books, as I was reading it, well, two things happened. I was listening to it actually, and I was on my walk with my dogs, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, these readers are my readers. Why can't I get these readers?" Well, I think my covers were terribly wrong, first of all. So I came home and I started brainstorming and ended up having the covers redone completely. And I think they're much better. I still don't know that the titles are the best because they all have murder in them, and they do have a murder mystery kind of element to them. Sadly, I think that shouldn't be the focus, because I feel like I'm missing a big audience, your audience, because of it. But I think the covers have definitely helped changing those. But so my character is a bibliomancer. So that was the other thing. I was
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, Ashlyn, she feels the books. And then in my Sky Girls, my character has synesthesia. So she, tastes, feels other people's emotions.
okay, this is weird.
I know.
You haven't read Happy Endings, have you?
So no.
Okay, I'll send you a copy of that.
Okay.
Um, she has synesthesia. She has a nose. She's a perfumer,
Mm-hmm.
and she smells people's emotions. She registers people's emotions as scents. Anger is vinegar and ash and
That's the same,
sulfur.
except for Rowan, it's taste.
Yeah, because I made it up. I like totally made it up. And somebody said, that's a real thing, right? And I'm like, no. So get this, my niece, who is now 8, registers music as colors.
Interesting.
She'll listen to a song, she'll say, that song is blue. And her parents, my whole family is musical.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll say, well, that song's blue, this song's yellow. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, when I hear that song, everything turns yellow for me, or everything turns blue. So we're like, okay, what is going on here? So they were very excited when I wrote that book, and they're like, oh my God, Allie has this, but she has it with music and colors. So it's just, that's why I said there's stuff out there we don't
Yeah,
know about.
I know. It's
I
so
can't
it's
believe you
amazing.
know one about synesthesia. That's funny.
I know. And then the bibliomancy. So, I mean, my character, well, it's actually stitchomancy because bibliomancy has to do with biblical religious
Right.
texts. Stitchomancy is
Right.
just regular, but, she doesn't even know she has it because there's this Irish curse. The women die in childbirth, the men die in the sea. They have this gift of bibliomancy. It's all, 2,000-year-old curse. But so she realizes, she opens the book, something will sort of jump out at her and tell,
Right.
foretell the future or guide her, in something that's happened in the past. But as I was reading or listening to your book, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to this woman.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like that Keeper of Happy Endings is actually being adapted for a Broadway musical now.
Is it really? Oh my gosh, congratulations.
I mean, like what? I,
That's
I can't even. They just like maybe a month ago they sent me the first three songs and the first three scenes from it. They promised by a certain date. And I can, if I didn't like it, I could stop the production cold or whatever. And it's wonderful. It's so much fun. Um, and when I first got the email from this guy, I thought, oh, this guy's a crackpot. What is this? So I sent it to my agent. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'm sending it on. And she, about an hour later, she's like, did you check this guy out? Like, this is an Emmy award winning guy. So
wow.
we're
Congratulations.
happy.
That's amazing. So you get to go to the opening and all of that, yeah?
Well, it's all written into the thing. I get X amount of tickets and I get the after party and the whole, it's in the contract.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know.
That's
I'll probably need a walker by the time it gets done, but whatever.
that's really cool though. That's so
Yeah,
exciting to
again,
be able
well,
to see your work
I
that
grew
way.
up in musical theater, so like that's a dream come true. People are like, oh, wouldn't you rather have a movie? Anybody can have a movie. I'm gonna have a musical.
I know, that's crazy. That is really cool.
You, you just never know.
Yeah. So, if you were to give some bit of advice to a writer who wants to incorporate magic as you do into their books, how would you guide them? What would you say to them? How would you advise them to kind of tackle that? I mean, you have this whole um, understanding of the world that you want to represent, and I don't know if every writer would have that same thing. So, how would you sort of direct them to build those layers in?
I think two things. Know exactly, or not exactly, but have a pretty good idea of the kind of magic and the kind of world you want to get across in your book. What do you want it to feel like? What do you want it to symbolize? And like how far out there do you want to go? Like, do you want to do a full time machine thing, or do you want to do witches with cauldrons, or do you want to do that more subtle magic? Have an idea of the kind of story you want to write, and this can change and morph as clearly we all do.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is read great books by great authors who write those kinds of stories.
Mhm.
I took a couple of writing classes in college, but I do not have a degree in writing. I do not have a degree, period. I self-taught myself by going out and finding great writers and reading and studying with a notebook and a highlighter and making notes on how they pulled things off, how they, not to copy, but to kind of like go backstage and see how the wheels turned,
Mhm.
and how the mechanism of their storytelling and how they made it real. Because for me, that's a big part of writing magical realism is it does have to seem real for me.
Right.
If you're writing science fiction, it can be whatever you want. But if you're writing that kind of everyday magic and it's just a kind of a weave or a drop in, it needs to be a little subtle. And the great writers do it great.
Mm.
And just read everything you can find and learn from great writers.
Do
That's
do you have some of your favorites that you would recommend?
I know you're going to ask me that, and my of course I'm the worst,
Me too.
the absolute worst at remembering names of books.
How about this? When you have a chance, could you email me a list of a couple of your favorites and I can include them in the show notes?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay, that'd be
Yes,
great.
I will do that.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, Barbara. It's been great. I really appreciate you taking the time. I
Thank
know
you.
you have been sick, a little under the weather. So, yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad that we've been able to
Yeah,
have this
this was
conversation.
great. This was a great way to come back. This was fun.
Yeah, this is great. Well, best of luck with the new book also. It sounds great.
Thanks, and I will get that list to you ASAP.
Okay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am Melissa Bourbon. This is Bourbon and Books. Take a moment to follow and subscribe to this channel for more author interviews, craft topics, and of course, marketing, especially with Pinterest. I will see you next time.